Lebanon and Israel have agreed to a 10-day ceasefire, which has just started. Let's bring in our correspondent, Bridget Rollison, who is in Jerusalem for us this morning. G'day, Bridget. Nice to have you back. Just tell us about this ceasefire. There still appears to be a lot of questions about exactly how it's going to work.
That's right, James. The ceasefire that Donald Trump has announced between Israel and Lebanon has just come into effect. However, right up until a few minutes ago, we have been seeing strikes from both Hezbollah and Israel into either country as they try to do maximum damage before this pause in fighting. This 10-day ceasefire comes after nearly 7 weeks of intense Israeli strikes on Lebanon. Israel says it is targeting the Iran-backed militant group Hezbollah in Lebanon. However, we have seen thousands of civilians killed. There has been a huge amount of devastation across the Lebanese capital of Beirut, but also southern Lebanon. The Lebanese Health Ministry says the death toll has now exceeded more than 2,100 people. So there will be a huge relief for a lot of people with this pause in fighting. However, just how this ceasefire is going to work practically is unclear. Israel is at war with Hezbollah, not the Lebanese government, and they have no direct control over Hezbollah. But Hezbollah has basically come out and said that it is willing to abide by this ceasefire, but they say there's some conditions. It must include a comprehensive halt in fighting and that Israel has no freedom of movement in Lebanon. Israel has thousands of troops currently still in southern Lebanon, and the Prime Minister says it has no plans to withdraw those. The big sticking point here, though, is getting Hezbollah to disarm. It's something that they have refused to do and that the Lebanese government hasn't been able to get them to do either, and they've been trying to do that for years. So here is the Israel Prime Minister.
In these peace talks, we have two fundamental demands. First, the disarmament of Hezbollah. Second, a sustainable peace agreement, peace through strength. In order to achieve the ceasefire, Hezbollah insisted on two conditions. The first condition was that Israel must withdraw from all Lebanese territory up to the international border. The second condition was a ceasefire based on a quiet-for-quiet arrangement. I did not agree to either of these, and indeed, neither of these conditions are being met.
That is the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking there. And Bridget, what's been the reaction to this in Israel so far?
Well, this ceasefire comes after intense pressure by the US on Israel. Israel's public broadcaster here is reporting that Donald Trump has been forcing this ceasefire on Israel in a bid to shore up negotiations with Iran, because, of course, Iran had been calling for this ceasefire with Lebanon before it would even start negotiations with the US to try to end this war that's been going now for 7 weeks. The US President Donald Trump now says that he will invite the Lebanese president and also the Israeli Prime Minister to the White House for more historic talks. Here's Donald Trump.
With Lebanon, it's very exciting. I think we're going to have a deal where we're going to have a meeting, first time in 44 years, and Lebanon will be meeting with Israel, and they're probably going to do it at the White House.
When do you think, President, when do you think they would?
Over the next week or two.
So it's clear that the US President Donald Trump has been driving this ceasefire. Just yesterday, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was resisting calls for a ceasefire and said that the war would be continuing with Lebanon. Prime Minister Netanyahu also has to convince the Israeli public, because recent polls here show that the majority of Israelis actually support the war with Lebanon and expect to see the fighting continue, James.